What would you do if you found yourself trapped in an endless loop, constantly watching the world end around you? Would you lose your mind and fall into pits of despair? Or would you grab the strings of fate and fight back against the inevitable? In an effort to end world hunger, Helping Hand Inc. began experimenting with subatomic research. When Helping Hand Inc. provided the first promising solution to ending world hunger, they created Biomass 96, and after years of development, in 2050, Synthetic Food 96 was born. Human trials are underway, and if successful, Synthetic Food 96 will be mass produced and dispensed across the world. Scientists hoped that this would be the breakthrough they needed, but in their attempts to end world hunger, they created something even more insatiable. Perdition is an action-adventure horror survival game set in the year 2050 before the Biomass 96 outbreak. Our characters will find themselves in a turbulent story about self-identity and determining what is for the greater good. The player will play as a test subject who volunteered to trial Synthetic Food 96 injections. The player wakes up disoriented and confused in a medical facility of Helping Hands Inc. with memories of a world engulfed in darkness. This will introduce the player to our unique 3D character modeling menu. They can customize facial and physical attributes to resemble any desired physique. Apparel options such as customizing your clothing are also a given, to allow for a glorious look on the battlefield. Once the player has their character, they can venture into the Helping Hands facility, but will soon face the predicament of trying to escape the impending doom that awaits them. The player will find along the way that the injection had diverse effects, and as a result, their character has gained numerous mutations that continue to grow. In 3 days, the same biofluid that was injected into the character's blood will breach containment and grow at an exponential rate, throwing the world deeper into turmoil. If the player is caught and consumed by Biomass 96, their mutations allow them to wake up 3 days before the breach. Every time the player is consumed by the biomass, they can adjust their talent tree accordingly. They'll be able to level up or evolve by collecting mutated samples throughout the game, which provides them with skill points for their evolution. Players will keep all their previous items and continue to try to solve the puzzle of the biomass containment breach and the mutations of those that were injected. But here's where it gets creepier. Every time the player is consumed by Biomass 96, the map changes. This opens up new areas that were not accessible before and closes off some areas that were. It also changes your current surroundings so that some areas may be still accessible, but now an enemy resides there and the scenery is not quite as pretty. A logic system will be used to ensure key parts of the facility will always be available, but the facility will evolve as a player evolves. Scientists and advanced military units keep the player from leaving the facility, and if they are caught, they'll be seen as a threat and fired upon. However, the player will have the option to engage in stealth and sneak past the military guards and scientists, hiding around corners and inside spaces like lockers, which will allow them to keep from being seen when enemies are nearby. Another unique feature is being able to disguise themselves as a member of the Helping Hands facility. While in disguise, our player can engage in open dialogue with NPCs. Note that when a player speaks with NPCs, the decisions they make will impact their story and gameplay, which will lead to alternate outcomes throughout their game. These conversations could lead to NPCs providing the player with tools or weapons. The available weapons throughout the game range from a variety of medical tools like scalpels or surgical saws, along with your traditional types of weapons such as firearms and melee weapons. These kinds of weapons can also be crafted and even evolved into something unwavering. Crafting alchemical solutions gives our players more combat options like poisons and gases, but also lets you craft helpful items like health and other solutions that help fend off the biomass. A quick select menu is a feature that any player can utilize outside of their inventory for fast access to preferred items, such as consumables like poisons and health, and of course any kind of weapons. This will allow the player fast maneuverability on the battlefield. Our players can engage in open combat with their weapons or mutations. Mutations change up the dynamics of combat in interesting ways. Players will unlock numerous abilities that evolve their mutations, and some of those abilities are directly related to their style of combat. When battling with an ability, a combo system increases the damage they inflict on enemies. This combo can be broken either by an enemy successfully attacking the player, or by long lulls in combat. If our players favor using stealth, there is also the option of crafting mechanisms and alchemical solutions that allow the player to trap enemies and defeat them from afar. This goes hand in hand with the player's ability to cause distractions using the environment, either pulling enemies away or toward them. Hiding behind enemies as they move enables the player to execute stealth attacks or maneuver throughout the facility whilst remaining undetected. Enemies will vary in their ranks and abilities. Mutants will have different attacks based on their evolution, which is also key to their grotesque physique and mutated appendages. Psychotic lab technicians will wander in the halls, ever searching for a test subject, and as these technicians evolve with the player, Their body language becomes more rigid, their line of sight increases, and their path and abilities alter. Bosses will be the ultimate test of skill, ranging from the very normal looking scientist who can manipulate other mutants, all the way to a giant horrendous mutated monster. Boss fights will be set with music tracks that range from dramatic eerie music to high intensity tracks that help to set the mood and intensify combat. Dynamic audio will be utilized during key moments to bring an intense experience to the player. An enemy moving close by your hiding space, a string of violins or racing heartbeat will sing your peril. Starting to overcome an enemy and have them on the ropes, the soundtrack will become triumphant and swing in your favor. This will even go so far down as to emphasize the moments of individuals eating in the cafeteria, NPCs and the player interacting with their environment. The types of environments the player will interact with will include sterile and clean rooms to provide the feeling of a well-kept laboratory or medical facility, yet a few of these places will evolve, turning a pleasant scene into a nightmare. The ominous scenery in the game features the gruesome effects of the biomass. Throughout the game, key events will cause black ooze from the biomass creatures to seep through the walls and drip from the ceiling, making the environment more claustrophobic and sickly looking. And to help stick to our T for T rating, blood will be replaced with substances similar to the biomass to help illustrate injury and progression. Lighting will be utilized alongside invigorating sounds to help enhance the suspense throughout the facility. Dramatic light sources in the game will include flickering hall lights, timely facility blackouts, and red blinking emergency lights. Some areas will reside in the shadows to play on our player's fears, and others will cast a natural light that allows the player to feel at ease or bring attention to specific details. Players can utilize the shadows and lighting to gain an advantage during stealth mode or during combat. This lets the player strike from the shadows, giving them a bonus to damage and a chance to immediately subdue an enemy or obstacle. For the sake of strategy or when the going gets tough, players can hide themselves within dark shadows to jump in and out of combat. For quicker reaction times and domination on the battlefield, we'll be including a feature that is available on some systems natively, but not all: button mapping. This flexibility allows players to use custom controllers to suit the needs of any player. Since this game isn't competitive, this won't be a concern to the individual player, and might even play into those that like to power play their games. Perdition is a first-person, action-adventure horror survival game dipped in immersive storytelling, exciting action, and mesmerizing visuals. The player will be able to choose their own path, their own story, and see their character become the ultimate mutant to stop the biomass. Perdition is rated T for Teen and designed for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC platforms. So, will you let your fear consume you, or will you enter the Helping Hands facility, meet invigorating NPCs, encounter terrible nightmares, and escape the impending doom of Biomass 96? The choice is yours.